Previously in X-Men, before the fall of the mutants and the battle for humanity in Dallas, Texas, the X-Men were hiding out on Alcatraz, the infamous, inescapable island prison in the San Francisco Bay. I am Jason Lapidus.
I'm Chris Hannigan.
And we are Group of Seven Comics. Welcome to episode 162 of our ongoing live stream read-through of the X-Men comics that became classic, as we read Uncanny X-Men 228 by Chris Claremont with an asterisk, Rick Leonardi, and Terry Austin. Welcome back, Terry Austin. Cover date of April 1988. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. In your intro, I was thinking, you know what? I didn't go to Alcatraz, but I saw Alcatraz in the San Francisco harbor last fall. And it gave me all sorts of ideas for a future Peregrine's adventure.
Yeah, it's a pretty inspiring locale with pretty inspiring mythology and mystique to it.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading a comic book called I already forget what it's called, like Escape from Alcatraz, perhaps.
That sounds pretty on the nose.
Yes, it found its way into my pull folder at my local comic shop, Planet X in Richmond Hill. Anthony, who manages the shop, often puts things in that he thinks I would enjoy, and it is a 1950s, 60s pulpy crime story about some people that perhaps escaped from Alcatraz,
right?
And he threw it in there, so I read that, and that was neat. But the idea here is that it's on our minds. It inspires narrative, right?
Totally. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's really the we're gonna go to print, folks out there. We're gonna be launching a new book soon. I know we just launched a book, Badlands, right there, but that one's gonna be out of print soon. Massimo, I see you in the chat. I got your copy. Don't worry, it's all good. But these are these Instagram comics that we then turn into single issue standalone adventures, and they're almost all out of print. We do these short, smaller print runs, get them into shows. 2 out of the 4 are completely out of print. One has 2 copies left. Another is on its way. Badlands is actually is on its way out as well. So that's been a really nice development. So all to say is that we want these comics to be able for people to get them. So no longer in single issue form, but certainly in an anthology. So that is in the works. And where I was going with this, because you mentioned Alcatraz at the beginning, and I was saying, I saw it and I have some ideas for a story. It's amazing how geography and locale can inspire storytelling. That's where I was going with this, because at least 3 to the 4 stories are directly inspired by family vacations that I've taken with my family over the last 4 or 5 years, and being in those locations and just having them kind of on the brain, and how fun it would be to throw our characters into those locales. Some urban and industrial, 100 years ago, some rural and extremely geographic in terms of the wonder and the scope of what they provide. So all to say, as soon as you said Alcatraz, I'm like, oh, well, there's another idea that I might have for a story.
Yeah, there are so many. And, you and I were fortunate to do a little bit of travel together. We can't help but think of stories when we do that. I know that I was recently traveling and a story came out while I was there.
Totally. So one of the first things you told me, we're like, how's the trip? You're like, well, I have this idea.
I find it neat how really you can pull from whatever experiences you're having, whether you are, in certain relationship conflicts, power dynamics, whatever it might be. Those things can inspire narratives, and locations, moments in history, whatever it is. My attitude really is, like, creative people find ways to create. So you pull from whatever it is that is coming your way, whether it's some geography, some history, interactions, relationships or moments in time, whatever it might be.
the Canadian music scene in the 1990s, whatever it happens to be.
Yes, I can't wait. By the way, for the next book, can you even say what the name is or no?
I don't even know.
No, okay, no, we're not saying anything.
Oh, that book. Oh, the one that. Yeah.
The one that's coming soon. We're just gonna. We'll wait till the next time.
Yeah.
Let's say hello to Michael in the chat. Allie, how are you? You awesome nerd. So I'm back at Allie. She gives it to all of us. I'm sending one back in the nicest way, of course. Mass. We're going to see him soon. I hope if he comes to that event that we're going to be at, which I don't think has been announced yet.
No, I think we can talk about it tonight, though, when we do the events.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And hey, Kevin, toying around. Hello there. Happy belated birthday.
Speaking of
Jason
events.
Jose there. Hello, X beings. We are definitely some X beings, that's for sure. And David Cutler, you're here early, man.
What? This isn't your MO. Your MO is to swoop in mid convo. page 12 of the 19.
The original Exy boy, I gotta say. The original Exy boy. Glad you all can be here for this one. It's an interesting one. You can see just even for the graphic, I didn't want to have the cover as the thumbnail for the show. It's just not appealing enough, And I really do find I'm a fan of Rick Leonardi, and I guess we'll get into this as we go. I find his work to be dynamic and full of energy, which I guess is what dynamic is implying, and interesting to look at and unique. So I would love covers from him, and just in this case, it doesn't work on me. So let's quickly talk about some events that we'll be at. Of course, Toying Around ToyCon. I can't wait till May 3rd. I'm one of those guys that does the March-May thing all the time. May 3rd, Saturday in 2025 at the Thornhill Community Center, my home arena, where I grew up playing childhood hockey. And we're going to be there as both comic book creators and as vendors of action figures, because I have lots to share with some new owners. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to the hangout. The original, my inspiration, voice of Wolverine, Cal Dodd will be there. George Buza will be there, who's the voice of Beast on the animated series, and at X-Men 97, both those guys. It's super cool that they're going to be there, and we'll get to at least meet them and say hello.
Group photo. That's the goal. The two of us, the two of them.
Sure. We'll do what we can to make that one happen.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Totally. Hey, I'm really do you think like whatever room it's at the community center can smell like the arena? Because you like that arena smell?
No, the library and the community center portion are quite separate from the arena. There's like a hallway with
what I'm talking about, right?
Fire doors on either side. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. It's a mix of Freon and BO.
Yeah.
That's on the other side of probably a hallway with fire doors on both sides.
And crushed dreams. And
some of those dreams were mine, dude. So looking forward to that. Of course, Toronto Comic Con we just did. The Halton Hills Fan Fest is this weekend. And you'll be there on Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday I'll be there. I'll have our books with us at a table and also on an author's panel as well. Just answering questions about the writing process and storytelling. They sent me the questions in advance. They're like fairly thoughtful questions. Not that I wasn't expecting anything else from a library, but you never know what to expect. And these are quite in depth, quite thoughtful. So I'm excited to have the conversation.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it for you. Wish I could be there, but I will not be there. And that is okay. Let's see what. Oops, pardon me.
Well, if you go back,
Toy Around ToyCon on May 3rd.
But in between.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Okay, so late breaking news. We will be there's a show coming up in Guelph, Ontario, that we have been as a little miniature con that we have been invited to be a part of. Mass, if you're listening, this one's for you. It's at the Bookshelf. Bookshelf is an independent bookstore, one of Canada's oldest and one of the greats in terms of supporting independent authors and book signings in this country, and so it has been operating for 40 or 50 years. It has a cinema attached to it, and it will be showing it will be showing that day Paying for It, which is a Canadian film based on a comic by Chester Brown, a very famous Canadian cartoonist you may have come across in your travels. And so he will be there along with film's director Suk-Yin Lee, who's another Canadian, Toronto. Used to be on Much Music for those in the crowd out there. He used to be a VJ, but also a filmmaker and artist, and was partner of Chester Brown at the time where he actually, I think, wrote Paying for It, which is all about his time paying for it. That's pretty much what it is. Handing over money for services. All to say, it's a bit of an event. So the local comic store, The Dragon, which we know we love, which has been supporting us since day one, assembled a motley crew of creators, including Scott Chandler, who, if you don't know his stuff, one of Canada's great cartoonists.
And friend of the show.
Right. I think he did the Alpha Flight episodes, if I remember correctly. Ho-Che Anderson as well, who is is the program artistic director of Toronto Comic TCAF this year. Also, friend of the show. We have been so many times we've missed to get Ho-Che on here. So
we'll see.
We'll see. As well as us and
Nick Crane.
Nick Crane, another Canadian cartoonist.
I feel like there's another name in there.
There might be another one in there.
Either way.
Wouldn't be surprised if other Guelph-based, there's a few of them, comic people showed up. Maybe Seth. I could see that happening. Maybe a Jay Stevens. I don't know if any of these names mean to people on the call, but fairly large in the Canadian comic scene. And internationally, too, for some of them. So, all to say, we're going to be there. It's from 1 to 8 p.m. on Saturday. It's the 26th, I believe. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Well,
the movie, I think, is at 4.
Yeah.
So there'll be tabling before and tabling after.
Yeah.
And I think is there a Q&A somewhere in there with Chester and Suk-Yin Lee? I think.
Maybe. So the Dragon's putting this on, and they extended the invite. Jay's, you're going to be there the whole time. I'm only going to be there for a couple of hours. We got to pop out.
Just the way I like it.
Just the way you like it. Yeah. So that's an exciting small little thing that just kind of happened, and we're happy to be there, and we're happy to see those are our friends, and we're happy to hang out with them. And it's kind of a cool comics-based movie that has come to life in Canada. So excited to see that.
Yeah. I mean, how many Canadian comics movies are there?
Well,
Very
aside
few.
from ours, in the works.
So it's neat. It's
totally. As Cutler writes, it's the late-breaking story on the CBC.
And then, of course, we're going to be at Montreal Comic Arts Festival near the end of May. I can't wait for that one. It's a beautiful show and on a beautiful street in a beautiful city, talking about the beautiful art of comics or bande dessinée. And then, of course, Toronto Comic Arts Festival on June 7th and 8th, which will be at the Mattamy Athletic Center, formerly Maple Leaf Gardens, which is why my eyes are distracted right here. I have a second screen, and my boys in blue and white are doing their best to win this game versus the Panthers, and it'll be what it'll be. So we'll see if they can pull that one out, but I am a little distracted, and that is okay. Let's get on to the matter at hand.
Right.
And David already started talking about it, saying like the colorist did Wolverine. He calls it the Wolverine statue on the cover dirty. So I found this really interesting as a kid, and looking at it now, just unappealing cover overall. Just putting that out there. This is not an appealing comic book cover. It is obviously well drawn. So like the technique used by Rick Leonardi and Terry Austin, they are fine craftsmen. I'm not ragging on that technique. The coloring choices place these as statues, but also are they ghosts? Like as a kid, I wasn't sure what I was like. Was it an angel taking them up to heaven? Given that I did not grow up hanging around churches, it felt, or a memorial of some kind, because it does say in memoriam. I didn't know what to make of this as a kid. And when I look at it now, I think it is a huge miscue. And this is just my opinion. a huge miscue to throw an angel
Right.
in on a cover and have it mean anything other than Angel, the X-Men.
Right.
It's like you got to find another way to do that. That cannot be misinterpreted in some way as Warren Worthington III. He's part of the lexicon of the brand.
Yeah.
So I always struggled with this as a kid. I still look at it now. It's weird. And then if you're going to make them plaster or marble, you need to warm that up a little bit. You need to add some of those yellows from the candle lighting in the room. You need to not make Wolverine's mouth. Does he have lipstick on, or is his mouth open? I don't know.
Right.
The coloring, like David says, it does him no favors. We can tell Allison is Allison just because of the emblem, the icon she has.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jason Jose says those lips on Wolverine, like clown makeup. Yeah, he's like Wolverine bozo. David says, I thought it was Warren too. At a glance, I get a statue of Warren holding Dazzler and a fish monster in Wolverine's boots. Yeah, you guys, I'm on track with all of that. Just on a side here, Patrick Sargent, how you doing? He says, I saw Jim Lee 2 weeks ago. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Were you like, is he someone that you come across in your week to week, or is that at an event of some kind? That's pretty remarkable.
Like at the store.
He is, for those who haven't come across him, he is surprisingly diminutive.
Petite?
Like you do a double take, he's so short, kind of. And
Didn't you do that one time
he did the double take at me.
He's like, is that Jason Lapidus?
No. He did. Is that Mignola?
Is that Mignola?
You know, because I was like walking and he said, oh, he just looked. Yeah, did the double take as if he knew me. But I was also walking in like the green room of a Comic-Con.
What does Mignola sound like? Can you be like?
I'm not. I don't.
Okay, it doesn't be like, hello, Jim. I don't know.
You got to do that for money. Have you not heard Mike Mignola speak?
I mean, I can't. Maybe, probably.
He and I don't have the same rhythms.
Okay.
Or the same ambiance to our voice.
Gotcha. Okay. So you didn't. Okay.
Yeah, not a great cover. I really do like I said, I like Leonardi a lot as a penciler. I wonder what the deal is, why they went in this direction, and we'll get into this a little more as we continue in with this issue. Do you want to just get right into it?
Sure. But everything that you summarized about the cover was, I think I called you or I texted you or something on the weekend. I say, I just read 228, and I'm like, that cover is just throwing me. It took me a while I'm like, Dazzler right away, without having read the comic before. Is Angel in this one? And I can tell it's Wolverine because of the boots, but nothing else screams Wolverine. So pretty hard.
Yeah, not.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, if art is meant to, if these are meant to communicate, I don't think that did its job.
Agreed. What is going on there? Is like a penalty. They don't want to touch the puck. Something crazy. Yeah, what a crappy cover. But I think it's an editorial misfire.
Gotcha.
I don't blame pencilers per se, but editorial misfire to me. Let's see.
All right, shall we get into this?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
And right on the first page, we will get
before we do
context for what it is we're reading. Yeah.
I am going to say this is, if you look at the corner box, one, I think it's a great corner box. Secondly, the previous corner boxes were like a mismatch of like Longshot and Havoc and Betsy Braddock and kind of like the most unappealing members of a team to put on a corner box.
Yes.
Even though I like those characters. And so this is like a different, going for a different vibe in the corner box.
So this is, clearly it's Arthur Adams. This is a piece of art that he submitted at a much, much, much larger scale. That is kind of like a redo of the pose that he originally did for Classic X-Men #1. And you can see how it doesn't work at this print size.
Right. He's like bursting all
those black lines for his hairy arms have just turned into blotches of black.
Right.
Like there's no detail at all there. This got used as a poster, and then it also got printed as a standalone standee.
Okay.
And you'll see some collectors have this, or some comic stores have this standee, and it's feet, like maybe 3 feet high or something like that.
Okay.
and then a version of it also, and that classic X-Men pose got redrawn again for a really beautiful and elaborate and like kind of lush poster that is probably on that box set for the Blu-ray not Blu-ray, the DVD-ROM that you were using for this.
Oh yeah,
I think it's on there, either the front or the back of that box that it came in. So it's a really great poster, and if I came across it, I'd probably still get it today. Anyway,
very cool.
But this is a perfect kind of image for a corner box of an X-Men comic.
Yes. All right.
Stanley presents Deadly Games. Before we get into that, I remembered what I wanted to say about Captain Power. We were talking about it before.
Sure.
And the kids in the house, there's like brothers, like a big brother and a little brother.
Yeah.
The big brother the little brother is like asking, he's like, I don't believe it. And the big brother says, believe it, small human. I believe that's the line. And so that's part of my, unfortunately, one of the things that always comes to my mind when people say I don't believe it. I always want to say, believe it, small human.
Lord Dread.
Yes. I have Lord Dread.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that ship, but I have Lord Dread for some reason.
I definitely remember this. I remember Captain Power.
And I have the cockpit pieces.
Yeah.
And one of those skids, but I don't have the ship.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it just came in a box with some other toys that I happened to get. All right, we need to talk about quickly the credits here.
Sure.
Chris Claremont, scripter. We don't get that usually. It usually says writer. Rick Leonardi, guest penciler. Terry Austin, guest inker. Perfect. Bill Ray on colors. Okay, that we've seen him transition into the series. And Glennis Oliver, also known as Glennis Ween, her transition out. There was an issue that they shared, a double-sized issue that they shared. And now Bill Ray is on and she's out. Tom Warzakowski's still on letters, as long as I can remember. And Anacenti editing. Tom DeFalco, guest plotter, editor-in-chief.
Wow.
So the editor-in-chief puts himself as, one of the kind of writers on the highest selling title over at Marvel.
Right.
So, okay, that's interesting.
What's going on there?
And then, of course, as we're going to talk about in a moment, Wolverine and Dazzler are the main features in this. There is a conceit to the story. There's like a premise here that the X-Men, of course, in the last issue have become legends. They sacrificed their lives,
right.
To save the world and reality. And the goddess Roma, who is like the guardian of order and reality, granted them a new life after they made their, huge sacrifice.
Yep.
And they are now like invisible to all detection and invisible to their enemies. But the world believes that they are dead.
Right.
And this story does not continue that narrative. It's just, here's a side story. And I think everyone wants to know what happens next, and we're not getting it. So just on that very idea that we're not getting the thing that we all came here for makes this, to me, one of the biggest letdown X-Men comics, because we're coming to see the beginning of a new chapter, and we're not getting it.
Yeah, certainly from a production perspective, if there are, and I'm sure there were, conversations like, okay, we're going to end it on this Fall of Mutants. Next up, it's a whole new era. And then, whoa, what if we just inserted this kind of throwaway adventure? Like it feels very filler, and it feels also like missing the mark. But then again, are we talking about production deadlines being behind?
It could be something as simple as that.
Right.
I do think that as we're going to read the story, let's see if the story has its own merits. If it's an enjoyable read on its own. But like I said, within the context of Fall of the Mutants, the big, huge crossover event, and like the scope that X-Men was on at the time, the scope of X-Men at the time, it by contrast, it just doesn't feel good. So let's see how that plays out as we read through. And then why are we getting a plot from your editor-in-chief? Maybe they had a problem and he had to step in and just come up with a story. And just note, he was one of the first writers on Dazzler back in the day. So he has a soft spot for her, and as a custodian of the character. And I'm maybe not so surprised that he picks the biggest, what happened? Did we lose it? Did we lose everybody? What happened there? Did I push a button? Did Chris push a button? I don't know what happened. I'm still here. Can you guys still see me? I think everything is still going. That's bizarre. Let's give it a minute and see if we get Chris back in here. And then it went dark. Yeah, I'm still here. Okay, Jason, thanks for telling me that you can see me. I appreciate it. I'm getting that Chris's devices are not connected. Okay. So, interesting. We'll give Chris a minute to get back in. And, oh, there he is. Do you guys want to see his face as he struggles to figure things out? How you doing, Chris?
I mean, computers, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what happened either.
It basically was like you started talking about production deadlines, and it was like, forget you and forget the X-Men.
It's fine. It happens. I'm surprised it doesn't actually happen more often. Either way, DeFalco is getting in there, and he cares about the character, about Dazzler, and he's pairing her with like the top X-Men, and maybe he sees that as a formula for some kind of success. And let's see if the story on its own is good.
Yeah, totally.
On its own merits.
Let's give it a chance.
All right. Los Angeles, California, 3 a.m.
Dear OZ, writing on the run in every sense of the word. Yesterday, Scotland. Tomorrow, across the universe. The X-Men's current hideout made me think of you, hence this letter. Alcatraz. Yep, the most notorious band of mutant outlaw heroes is using the derelict old federal prison as a temporary base. One of life's little ironies, huh? Especially with those sorry.
It's okay.
What does it say?
Good question.
Those feds scouring the country for us, as though we were public enemies or something. On the other hand, you're a bounty hunter. Your job's catching people like us. You're also my friend. So believe me, please, when I tell you, the X-Men may be wanted, but we're not criminals. Same as you weren't. That time not so long ago in Florida. Remember?
Dan Alvin says, spectacular splash title page. Yeah, I get that idea. This is not the thing that everyone wants to see, and it's a bit of a tough one.
And hard. I mean, honestly, I know I'm looking at a screen of a digital copy, but still, just the calligraphy. It's.
I'm going to tell you, and this is unfortunately to the detriment of the fine craftsmen who work on this issue.
Yeah.
The print job is really unclear a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And in the copy I have, there are a few times where the color and the black don't line up perfectly, and it creates a crazy amount of smudging. Yeah. And that's actually one of the graces, I think, of Golden Age and Silver Age comics, and a lot of the Bronze Age stuff, where artists were a lot less ambitious, generally speaking, and where when things are, when the print is off kilter, things are still understandable. Like Superman he's drawn so rudimentarily that, is that a word?
Rudimentary?
Rudimentarily? I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's drawn so simply that when the color plates are shifted off center, it still makes sense.
Right.
But some of this I find gets a little muddy because the work is more ornate. It's a little more ambitious.
A little more ambitious, yeah.
But I'm in the mood now for some Kentucky bourbon.
Woo! To that much.
Yeah.
All right. So is it OZ or Oz? What do we think?
What would you... I mean, it's literally written O and then a Z, but
right.
OZ.
OZ. I mean, I don't think it's OZ. But...
Well, OZ would be petty if you said that.
Exactly.
But I think if you can say Oz, I think that's fine too. I think Oz is maybe going to be a smoother read.
I think so too.
I think it is written as OZ for a reason.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. It's not easy being an X-Men, Oz. You have to practice every day. First, learning the various uses and limits of your power, just so you don't inadvertently become a danger to everyone around you. and give mutants a worse name than we already have, if that's even possible. And then honing that knowledge, plus a whole rack full of other nasty skills so you can fight. There's a special place in their headquarters complex for all this called the Danger Room, aptly named. The names I'd call it, I won't even mention in this letter. Suffice to say, given the chance, I'd cheerfully blow it to Kingdom Come, if it doesn't nail me first. So there we were, Dazzler in the Danger Room, trying to knock each other silly. I'm up against the ultimate in high-tech computer wizardry, with only my wits and light powers to save me.
Holding your own, babe.
Trying my darndest, Wolverine. This is supposed to be a solo session. I could do without any distractions.
So could we all. Trouble is, in a scrap, distractions come with the territory. The X-Men have to think fast and always land on their feet.
I was doing fine, mister, till you came along.
Do better.
The man is so infuriating, Oz.
I do like that machine gun walking biped robot.
Yeah. It's giving me like Terminator kind of vibes. I like
RoboCop.
RoboCop, there you go.
Without its like upper half, you know?
Right, totally, yeah. Good call. It's like if he cuts me an inch of slack, the world will come to an end or something.
Heads up, Daz.
Microjets, where'd they come from? Darn room, forever blindsiding you when you least expect it. I tried to knock them out of the air with my solid light photon bolts, but nothing happened. My energy reservoir had dropped, too low to generate them. Wolverine, help! Cut me loose.
Too late, Songbird.
Oh! Darn the man. I thought we were teammates. Why didn't you lend a hand?
You have to learn to stand on your own first. Otherwise, you'll remain a liability the X-Men can't afford.
Well, thank you very much for that vote of confidence. I was a solo act long before I joined this turkey group. And for your information, I was a star. I was so steamed. The nerve of that little louse, and yet my angry words rang painfully hollow. I never wanted to be a superhero rogue, just a singer. Fate forced me to join the X-Men. Hard time, sugar, hard choices. Wolvie has the tact of a brick, but he means well. He was as rough on me when I joined the team. Cold comfort, I'm afraid. He treats me like an amateur.
By his standards, Allison, that's what most of us are. This is intriguing. I wonder if it's something the X-Men should look into.
What you got?
A murderer in Florida, reputed to be a werewolf. Perhaps he's a mutant with a lycanthropic talent akin to the New Mutants' Wolfsbane.
Oz Chase?
You know the man.
Only too well, and he's no more a killer or a werewolf than I am.
By the way, it is a bit of a trope having female X-Men in the shower.
Right, yeah. Good point.
I don't know how many times we've come across it already. Obviously, with Storm, we've had a couple instances.
Sure.
But it continues to be the more cheesecake X-Men comics get, the more we're going to see characters coming out of the shower after their, Danger Room sessions. Take a look at the recreation on the far right of that famous Wolverine drawing by Todd McFarlane. So this has been recreated by a third party of some kind who's selling grab bags.
Looks like it.
And so they've drawn it into an ad and placed that ad in a Marvel comic that owns that image. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It is such a shitty recreation.
It's not good.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I would like to get a tattoo of that.
That would be amazing. Oh, is that the Todd McFarlane Wolverine? You'd think so, but no, it's actually from
the
order.
Dan Alvin says, Winger Lose, how you doing? He says, hygiene is important. Yes, we agree. So that's why we got to have the showers. Jason Jose says, wait till the 90s. It's just going to go out of control. And Dan says, Dazzler was in and out of the shower like every other issue in her series in the early 80s. Express on Parade from Jason Jose. Yeah, it is, it sells or whatever. It adds to the feel. And yeah, I think it's part of the vibe of comics in the second half of the 80s and through the 90s.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
Ain't the best time, Allie, for going off on your lonesome. Lot of headhunters on the prowl for some X-Men scouts.
I'm aware of the risks, Wolverine, and the dangers, but Oz is a friend. I owe him too much to stand by and do nothing when he's in trouble.
You'll do better with a backup.
I appreciate your concern. This is a personal affair. It doesn't involve the X-Men.
Look how big Wolverine.
Huge.
So we saw him draw Wolverine in that one of those issues in the Mutant Massacre, where he's fighting Sabretooth, like for the first time, get introduced to him. And he's quite thin in that one. This obviously is like the direction that Wolverine goes and how he's portrayed with most artists. But man, he looks really imposing. I dig it.
Yeah.
It's nice and cartoony too. I like that a lot. You're part of the team, darling. Everything you do involves us.
Not this time. I'll be in touch. And don't fret, I'll be careful. Intellectually, she understands why she's with us. Emotionally, she hates it. Every so often, she's got to kick over the traces and go solo. Last time, she ran headlong into Juggernaut. You'd figured she'd have learned from that.
Yep.
So, boss, we gonna let her jaunt off like this, or what?
I mean, Wolverine is a guy that does that all the time, right?
All the time. That's his thing.
Yeah. To go.
I mean, it's very much. And speaking of tropes, I suppose. I mean, it is very much an X-Men thing. Like, I got to do this on my own. It's like, why long shot? It's like, because I do. Like because everyone else has done. I thought that's a thing you do in this plane of existence.
As a kid, at this point, I'm 13 in '88 in April. And, making my own comics. And every time it's a character who says, I got to do this. I got to do this on my own.
Yeah.
That's always what they did. And I don't think I ever understood the real emotional truth of that.
Right.
This is something I have to deal with by myself.
Yeah.
But Batman often did that too. Like we'd leave Robin at home.
Yeah.
And this is something that definitely resonated with me. David Cutler says Wolverine looks like 90s Art Adams art there. Yeah, I think just the proportions of him, for sure. I definitely get that vibe too. That narrow tapered waist and just all bulk everywhere else. He also adds Rogue's face at the bottom right panel has the Adams look too. Yeah. I can't imagine anyone getting or being able to resist being influenced by what Art Adams was bringing to the table, considering a bunch of other artists basically made drawing like Arthur Adams and Michael Golden in a fraction of the time their bread and butter.
Right.
So, yeah, huge influence, especially on X books. Pentonville, Florida. Up on the Panhandle, not far from the Bama line.
What smells so sinfully good, Mother?
Never you mind.
Is that pie?
Thomas, you keep your hands off. It's Becky's favorite to celebrate her coming home from West Point. Land sakes, will you look at the time? Get yourself washed and changed, you old goat. Her bus is due in an hour.
Oh, can't go as I am.
Into town to meet your officer daughter? You most certainly can. What? Thomas?
The truck. Excuse me, Philip.
Father, you be careful.
Out of there, mister, or so help me our Lord of mercy. Ow!
Thomas.
That's what happens when you're fried. You say, ow!
Yeah, it hurts.
It hurts a lot.
Man, don't get fried.
Don't, kids, don't do it. The flight to Miami was no problem. Getting the rest of the way to Citrus Center was the adventure. Funny, the town reminded me of all the places I toured when I pursued my singing career. One night honky-tonk stands for pay that barely covered expenses before audiences more interested in my body than my voice. Still and all, a life I loved.
I was beginning to wonder if you'd ever show.
I thought I told you.
Hey, darling, since when did I ever do what I was told? By the way, the scene of her getting off the bus with the palm tree, instantly reminds me, spoilers, of the end of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, it's been forever.
It obviously comes out years later,
Yeah.
maybe 92, 93. But I don't want to say what happens, but anyway, it reminded me right away of that. But
Okay.
It's not related. Good use of establishing the setting really quickly with the palm tree in the foreground. I dig that.
Totally.
Wolverine, yes. Heard something in your voice when you mentioned Chase. A fear that he may not be as innocent as you want to believe.
I hoped you wouldn't notice. I guess I should have known better.
Yep.
Chase has a sort of dog called Cerberus, after the Hound of Hades, meaner than you. He could have inflicted those wounds. Question is, on his own or at Chase's command?
I like Wolverine's shirt.
Yeah, and his hat. I'll check at the police station. Maybe they'll let me see Chase.
Worth a try. I got us rooms at the Bates Motel. I'll cart your bags over.
I mean, that can't be good, but hey.
No.
Speaking of things, thanks. See you later then.
Yeah, for those who don't know, because, there's a bajillion different pop culture references to catch. The Bates Motel is where the events of the film Psycho take place.
That's right.
So there you go. You do not want to have rooms at the Bates Motel. Jason Petro says Dazzler is having an old friend for dinner. Yeah, that's the Hannibal reference there. Good.
Nice. I wondered why, after all Wolvie's talk of backing me up, he was suddenly so eager to leave me. I should have realized he was a secret agent long before he became an X-Man. He'd spotted our tail the moment the man started following us. I suppose in those days, in that sense, I really was an amateur, because I hadn't noticed him.
Got a name, bub? And a reason for playing our shadow?
It takes a brave man or a consummate fool to challenge Wolverine, especially once he pops his claws. I think our goon was too stupid to know any better. He paid the price.
So Wolverine being a spy is like the most, conspicuous person,
right?
In that locale. To David's earlier comments about Arthur Adams, I'm gonna put the thought out there that we've got we've got Terry Austin on inks, and I wonder how much of like Art Adams' aesthetic or texture and rendering style he's bringing, because we've seen a lot of early Arthur Adams with Terry Austin inking over, and they're both kind of pen guys and match up well with a lot of small lines, and I'm seeing some similarities and just some rendering of little things here, like the creases on the pants and the way the figures are outlined and whatnot. Foliage, texture on the buildings reminds me of both guys at the same time. Maybe that's where they have some crossover.
I do like the Miami Vice outfit this goon is wearing, though, with the white jacket and pink shirt.
Pastels.
Yeah.
Prizes for cash.
Ooh.
Or it's prizes or cash, pardon me.
Sounds legit.
Yeah.
Wish I'd been having better luck.
Prisoner don't want any visitors, ma'am.
Could I speak to his attorney then?
Public defender's gone fishing. Leave your name and number. We'll make sure he gets in touch.
Yeah, right. I'll bet. I only studied undergraduate pre-law, but I knew what these cops were pulling was patently illegal. If you'd ever come to trial, Oz, the case would have been thrown out first thing. But in the meantime, I was stuck. So I snuck into the police impound lot. For a quick peek at your truck, You'll never guess who was waiting. Cerberus? How are you, puppy? Yeah, I missed you too. He and Wolvie hit it off tremendously, especially after Wolvie fed him a couple of choice Havana cigars. Your pooch, Oz, has very weird tastes, and Wolverine should be arrested for animal cruelty.
Let's stop there for a minute. You've got a couple dogs.
I do.
I've got a dog.
Yep.
What would happen if you fed your dog a cigar?
If I fed it like they ate it.
If they ate the cigar, what would happen?
They'd probably like either vomit it up or shit it out.
It would be terrible for that dog.
Yeah.
Cerberus would not like that. That would not be a good encounter. Like, choose something other than, say, a steak. Like, why would he? Anyway. Secondly, you ever come across a dog so big, and if you take that pose in that embrace, that dog is bowling you over.
That dog is on top of you.
She cannot support the weight of that dog.
There's no way that dog is not.
I know, I'm just being silly. And yeah, if this dog was wolfsbane, I would be totally fine with it.
Right.
But yeah, the weight of that dog is on her shoulders and she's going right over. I just feel like I know everything about dogs right now because I have had one only for 3 years.
Of course. So therefore, yeah.
So I'm totally an expert on all things canine. David Cutler says Wolverine's secret agent status almost never gets brought up post Claremont. His tracking and what have you is attributed to his mutant ability and life in the wilderness. Yeah, I think there's some beautiful middle ground to those things. The idea of him as a secret agent, I think, got brought up quite a bit in other series, David. I know that when I was reading, tell me, what was it? How after House of M, didn't Wolverine have complete knowledge of his past for a stretch? And they actually started a second Wolverine solo series, and I guess it was in the aughts, maybe, or the early. Yeah, I think it was in the aughts, and it was called Wolverine Origins. And I think the whole point of it was him going and getting like vengeance on all the people that wronged him over those years. Now that he remembers, so like if some colonel kept him in a pit and used a Gatling gun, that every time Wolverine would heal, they'd take target practice and just put him back in the pit. Wolverine went and found that guy and killed him. I actually remember maybe at the start of that series, like people in a bunker, and they get essentially a fax or a memo or whatever that Wolverine has gained full knowledge of his history. Yeah. Of course, the reader hasn't. And everyone in the bunker kills themselves. They're like, oh no! He knows what we did to him. Uh-oh. And it was sort of this thread of suspense throughout the series that everyone had kind of wronged Wolverine in a variety of ways. I would love it if it was done as a comedy. It was like all the Marvel superheroes and villains had either like borrowed money and then wiped his memory, or stolen food from his fridge and wiped his memory, and so he's
like drank his beer, didn't replace it.
Exactly, and so he's coming to get his petty revenge on everyone for these little grievances. That would be really fun. But yeah, that idea that he has this huge backlog of hidden memories is a totally post Claremont thing, and I don't know if it makes the character any better. Yeah,
that would be fun.
Dan Owen says, I have Wolverine Origins 1 to 5 at the top of my read pile right now. Just read the brutal Sabretooth one shot yesterday. I have to admit, I don't remember any of that. Maybe everything I said was just coming from my own, my own flawed memory. I hope some of that is true, though, because it does make it more entertaining. Given that, of course, there was a series called Wolverine Origins, which was the limited series, which was a rush to get Wolverine's origin, as James Howlett out before the movie got there first. They wanted to make sure Marvel kind of had that narrative done. This is after that. They decided to take the same title and same font, I believe, and make an ongoing series. So it was a second Wolverine title, at least at the time. Oh yeah.
Hey.
I have a box of just all that stuff. And I don't know.
You were telling me which one is the one where like it's the whole issue is that he's in a hole and there's like guys who take shifts just to use a giant laser Gatling gun at him.
It's like either a backup in that or it's one of those issues. If memory serves, it's Howard Chaykin who either wrote and did the cover maybe or even the art. It's been a long time since I read that stuff.
Right.
I was still working at the museum, I think, back then. So it had to be at least before 2011. David Cutler says, I think the amnesia is a narrative device to jam in new details to his past while getting around him having never mentioned making love to a leprechaun before or whatever. Oh, he mentioned it, David. He mentioned it.
That was at the Castle Keep in whatever that issue was.
You know what I actually think it is? In addition to what you're saying, I think it's just a chance for writers to put their stamp on the character. You know, there's been now 12 years of Wolverine. There's no sign that his memory has ever failed. And Claremont has essentially written everything with Wolverine in it, with a few exceptions here or there where, you know, he goes to Alpha Flight for 2 issues and Bill Mantlo writes, but they're not like impacting continuity in a huge way, or he guest spots over in Marvel Team Up or something like that.
Right.
But Claremont and, you know, Miller made that huge dent with the limited series with Claremont, but they've guided, and, you know, John Byrne too, they've really guided that character for 12 years. There is no sign that his memory is an issue. It's just, I think writers, when they get a chance to, you know, make a mark on a character, they, you know, they want to do their thing to, but I always, it feels to me like it's a vanity project for everybody as opposed to what's best for the character or I should say, it's so that there can be an ongoing serialized premise. Like, that just it keeps bearing fruit, you know, because you can just come back to it all the time.
Totally.
The narrative device, I guess that's what David's saying, right? But I think the narrative device weakens the character.
It's like multiverse type stuff a little bit, right? Or it's
once you can do anything, it's all kind of nothing
a little bit.
So talking about Arthur Adams stuff, when you flip the page, I think did we not read the end of that one yet?
We did.
When you flip, there's so much more Arthur Adams ticks on this, and I really do think it's a combination of, you know, where Leonardi's at, but Terry Austin bringing it, especially if you go and read that Action Comics annual #1.
Yes.
Even the coloring feels a little similar at times, where Batman and Superman are battling the vampire known as Skeeter. There you go. Okay, let's do this.
Wolfie and I compared notes. The goon stashed and tied up next door in my room remained ferociously uncooperative.
Fella has a Russian base scent. Packing a Tokarev 9mm standard KGB issue.
Boy, how come they're involved?
Good question.
Chase is the key. We can't get near him.
Wanna bet?
He emptied a bottle of booze over himself for effect and sang his way down Main Street. Sinatra, he's not. The gendarme, bless him, did their duty. And presto, there he was, sharing the cell block with you.
Hold on a second here.
Yeah.
When they arrest him, where's his hat? I don't mind. You know, throw the hat in there. That's all good. But, you know. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. But before he could introduce himself...
Mr. Chase.
Who wants to know?
Friends. In a position to help you in this time of need, provided you do the same for us in return. We are interested in your quarry.
Look, everything I know is on the police report.
One of our colleagues is missing.
Can you perhaps account for that? Hey, pal, I've been here the past week. Well, we had to ask. Hey, what gives? You are a loose end, Mr. Chase, and we are, by nature, a tidy people. What?
Sorry, boys, but I got a preeminent claim on the man, and no use for him dead.
Snicked.
I love that, like, Wolverine's fist image. You know, like, you do that. That's where the colorist just does such great storytelling. Too bad the bar doesn't stay purple or magenta all the way down. It's a little odd. But I love that, how it brings it into the shadow in the foreground by just having it in that monochromatic purple stuff. Really cool.
Totally.
David says, I grew up with Amnesiac Wolverine to the point that it's an essential part of the character for me. Skeet, skeet.
Skeet, skeet.
Yeah, man. That's the beauty of it, right?
Totally.
I can't remember. That's all that matters now.
That's all that matters now. They were good. He was better. And the way I heard it, you played your part as well. Who?
Name's Wolverine. We got a mutual friend, Dazzler.
Ain't my style to bust out of jail.
You rather stay and remain a sitting duck? Assuming you're innocent, Oz.
Assuming?
Someone's gone to a lot of trouble to frame you. And someone else, it seems, is going to as much trouble to have you killed.
What the heck are you mixed up in? Blessed if I know, Blondie. I thought this was an ordinary skip trace. A while back, LAPD nailed a top-notch Colombian drug dealer. Bust of the century, they called it. The district attorney wanted the guy held without bail, but the judge saw it different. Went for 8 figures instead. Figured nobody'd run out of that much loot. Imagine his surprise when the guy did precisely that. On the assumption the man had fled out of state, the DA's office brought me in. Feeling I got was that they didn't trust the feds on this, but no one would tell me why. It took a while, but the trail led here to the Glades. Yeah, small army protecting him. A dog and me, we cut him down to size. The man didn't look bothered to see me. Never seen eyes as cold as his, like a shark's, you know. No mercy, less humanity. He smiled, began to glow. It reminded me a little of you, Daz. Never had a chance to pull the trigger of my 12 gauge before a white light exploded from his hand. I went through the wall the hard way, and that was all she wrote.
His drawings are really good. That one of the guy's face as he sees Oz there. Again, like, just the Arthur Adams stuff is really working.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it.
Around this time, I believe he does as well. He does one of the Daredevil and the Sentry run. I think it's a Daredevil meets Wolverine.
Right.
But it's a nice, it's, again, I enjoyed that issue. Yeah. He must have assumed he'd kill me. Luckily, my bulletproof vest took the brunt of the zap because he left without finishing me off. When I finally came to, the cops had arrived. Cerberus took off himself. He doesn't respond well to authority figures. While I tried, groggy as I was, to explain what had gone down. Law wasn't interested. Next thing I knew, I was being booked for multiple homicides. The guy had obviously fried his own people to punish him, I guess, for not stopping me, but I was taking the fall. And that, my friends, is all I know.
The dealer, he Colombian?
Nope. Caucasian. A foreigner.
Got a picture?
His booking photo.
Yeah, that's him. Recognized him from the power blast you described. This clinches it. Vladimir Semyonovich Zaitsev.
A Russian defenseman?
Former Maple Leaf and senator.
Current Ottawa senator?
Is he still in the league, Zaitsev?
I don't even know. It's it. Sorry.
KGB, when we tussled years ago. Wet work specialist. Mayhem and assassination.
But if Zaitsev's a Soviet spy, why are other Soviet spies chasing him?
I'm not sure what we should read next to. So this is like an example of some bad coordination between parties. So the closest word balloon is Rescue Team from Wolverine.
But
that leads into the next panel, which
Agreed.
we should have already read, International Espionage. Yeah, but I think we go. Yeah, I think we go with Oz's line.
Yeah. International espionage is a little out of my league.
Rescue team, or maybe Vlad's become an embarrassment.
Russians?
They don't generally knock. Scent tells me, though, it's someone almost as bad. I got to tell you, your work here, like the comic book you've got in front of us, is printed way more clearly than the one I have.
Okay.
The lettering is all like blurry, especially in the bottom left. It gets really like runny and everything gets a little off kilter. Like Wolverine doesn't even have a nose.
Oh.
In panel 5 on my page, you got no nose, no mouth. Yeah, it's all, as you would say, it's all fucked. Yeah.
Well, here's the page turn. Who is it? It's...
Who would have guessed? Henry Peter Gyrick. Take a bow. You still a company boy, Hank?
Actually, Wolverine, I'm attached to the National Security Council with particular interest in mutant activities. Can we talk? And by the way, don't call me Hank.
So Nikita Zaitsev in the KHL. Thanks, Mass.
Perfect.
When I worked for the Canadian Special Intelligence Service, Hank here was my CIA liaison. So, old buddy, what brings you to this neck of the woods?
Zaitsev, of course. 5 years ago, we thought we'd turned him, a prized defection. He was to be our window into the Soviet mutant program, a chance to learn where we stood with superpowered beings in relation to them. Charged a pretty penny, too, for his services, $1 million in gold. And then he double-crossed us in the KGB, both. Took the money and headed for Colombia, in the life of a cocaine king. However, down there, it's tough at the top. A rival gang lord sold him out. Problem was the local cops who busted him didn't know who they had, and by the time my office was alerted, he'd skipped. He's boxed in. His holdings in Colombia are gone, so he can't run there. The KGB wants him dead to punish his betrayal of the Rodina, the motherland, as well as keep us from learning what he knows. They've sent over a team of top hitters to do the job, so we have to get him first.
And you want me to do it?
You have the skills, and it certainly wouldn't hurt the X-Men's reputation to cooperate, because you're not off the... No, we know you're still here with the federal government in this matter.
Zaitsev's crimes don't matter.
That's not your concern. Just bring him in, Wolverine, alive. Leave the rest to us.
Okay, that is a shit ton of exposition. I wonder if you were to, if one was to go at that, that page with a red pen.
Yeah.
And just figure what are the essential things we actually need to say. I bet you we could do a much more a brief job on that.
Be a bit more economical with that.
My God, yeah. No kid who this book is targeting ever wanted to read that page.
No. And also, again, it's this idea that the X-Men could have friends in the government. It's like, I thought we just went through a whole series sequence where the X-Men kind of got off people's radar, disappeared.
Well, that hasn't happened yet.
Right. That's what I mean. That's why this one, feels
this
so...
is it takes place 10 issues earlier or whatever.
Right.
Also, we hate Gyrick. He's the guy that made... Didn't he not fire the pistol that Forge tried to...
Oh, maybe.
Wasn't he the one holding the gun?
Yeah, it could have been.
Storm?
Could have been.
We hate this guy. Get out of here.
You don't like him.
Yeah.
Send him to the KHL.
Yeah.
I don't like him. I guess this is back to Dazzler.
I believe so.
Nice of Gyrick to tell you the charges against you had been dropped when he was probably the one responsible for your arrest in the first place. Sanctimoniously self-righteous creep. I understand Wolvie's feelings. From what I heard, Zaitsev had left a trail of bodies back to Russia and beyond. Yet because it was supposedly in America's national interest, we were going to turn a blind eye to all of that. Give him a new identity, a new life, guaranteed safety to the end of his days. Crime for him was going to pay in spades. I'll bet he was waiting for Gyrick that night in the Glades when you dropped in on him. Do you think Gyrick had double-crossed him, abandoned him? Neat plan, you know. This way, Zaitsev's jumps bail and simply disappears. Government doesn't have to take any PR flack for granting amnesty to a total sludge bucket. Tell you, pal, if hating dirty deals like that makes me an amateur, and I'm glad of it. I like caring about people and trusting them. Okay, that means I get hurt from time to time, but the reward's well worth the pain. And I'm a lot tougher than I look. We were beginning to wonder, Shorty, if you'd ever show.
See? They got the drop on him this time.
Right.
You know, he wouldn't have smelled them.
Nope. And it looks like he's been going through the bush and really struggling while they just kind of showed up.
In a car.
In the car. Truck. You took a real long way to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like surprised, even though he walks past the guy's truck. One little art note. So in the fourth panel on page 17, on the right-hand side there, we get Wolverine's face illuminated. So there's, essentially there isn't black ink around his eyes and parts of his nose. And that is, I find, also like a little bit of a hallmark of the way that Arthur Adams approaches drawing Wolverine when he wants to. Like, he'll leave room for above the brow and at the top of the cheek, like the orbital bone, and let the black be the rest of his mask. A lot of other artists will just always have the whole mask black, except for maybe a line here or there. But Arthur Adams does it more like this often, and Leonardi does a nice one. Yeah, anyway. This reminded me of Arthur Adams again. David's put a thought in my head and I can't get it out. Darn David.
Darn David. Okay.
You were told to stay out of this.
To coin a phrase, since when did I ever do what I was told?
Smart mouth will get you into trouble someday, girl. But not tonight.
You're right about Oz being bugged. A tracker mic slipped into his clothes when he was processed into jail. Thanks for slipping us the note.
Nope. Thought that was it. Explains how Hank found our motel.
You really don't like him.
Ain't much to like. How'd you find me?
Cerberus.
Flamin' bow wow.
Mind your tongue. He's the sweetest little puppy. Listen, gunshots. Popping like firecrackers in the balmy evening air. Cries too, frenzied voices yelling in what I assume is Russian. They had their man cornered, forgetting in the process that that's when he becomes most dangerous.
Aye!
Are you used to violence, Oz? To death? I guess you must be, given the work you do and the people you associate with. It always shakes me to the core to see a living, breathing, feeling organism, a human being, suddenly reduced to clay, dreams, hopes, loves, made instant dust as if they'd never been. So, Tovarash, we meet again. But I suspect for the last time.
That bub is a fact.
Fast as Wolvie was, ducking under one energy bolt, Zaitsev impossibly was faster because Wolvie missed him. Zaitsev didn't have sufficient juice for another full power blast. Oh, brother, do I know that feeling. But he was able to clip Wolvie's arm.
Is that because you're, coming up on 45? You don't the feeling of not having enough juice for another one of your power blasts?
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
Did I know that feeling? Hard enough to paralyze it. Yo, Bright Eyes, remember me? The Bounty Man?
Your Russians are always so slow and dumb.
The Bounty Man? I'll be safe now for your interference. I should have made certain of you when last we met. I shall not be so careless a second time. Sorry, Buster, but I like the man, the way he is. My dazzle strobe disoriented him. I don't like the one thing I will say about the Dazzler character is they keep giving her attacks names. Like My finger photon blast. I'm like, okay. My dazzle strobe. Okay.
Right.
Anyway. And he ran like a rabbit. As usual, Wolvie figured I'd screwed up.
Should have used your photon blast to deck 'em, Daz. Or, better yet, your laser to finish the job. You know, I think once you get all the super this and bat that, and then spider sense,
Yeah,
Spidey sense,
I guess.
Yeah,
totally. Get you be. Easy for him to say. I'm so afraid, Oz, that someday it might become as easy for me to do. Anyway, we soon found Zaitsev. Wolvie saw to that. Unfortunately, we weren't the only ones.
Daz, 9 o'clock.
I never had a chance to think. I simply reacted. Like being in the danger room. Only a false move wouldn't result in a robot flag saying, bang, you're dead. This was for real. I knew Zaitsev would try a shot the minute my back was turned. So I had to make myself the lousiest target possible for him, while simultaneously clobbering the gunman. Of course, when I came to rest, I was wide open. But Zaitsev had forgotten what I had not. Ah! Namely, that I wasn't alone. In spite of everything, though, I had to admire the man's stamina. And maybe even his courage. He didn't go down. He kept fighting. Kept running. Guy Rick, where are you, pompous toad? I'll do your promise, American. Comfort me. But before I tell you a word I want, I insist, I demand, you have these three, the bounty man, the girl, Wolverine, executed. That is my price, Guy Rick. Their lives for mine. I guess Cerberus considered that a pretty fair deal. Wow.
Yum, yum, yum.
It's a murdering dog.
That is, yeah.
No, Pooch, no! Ah, Pooch! Sorry. Nice to know he cares.
We blew it, Hank.
Sorry about that, fella. You'll be sorrier still when I'm through with you. Have you any idea of the harm you've done this country? Zaitsev was a drug-pushing murderer who's paid the price for his crimes. Hardly my idea of harm. And a lot easier to live with than the fate you had planned for him. I had a whole speech prepared, wonderfully passionate stuff, pure civics 101, all but a government's responsibility to hold to the best ideals and aspirations of its citizenry and not be so eager to sacrifice them to expediency. But Wolvie noted dryly my words would be falling on the deafest of ears. I felt sorry for Gyrick. So caught up in his duty, he'd forgotten what he was defending. I hope I never do. A dream, Oz, an extension of the American dream. A world where everyone, mutant, human, whatever, is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, where you're judged by who you are, not by what you look like. This time, bad guys pretended they were good. Good guys got portrayed as bad. Things worked out in the end. And then it says, because we knew who to trust. We may not be so lucky next time. Hey, maybe, hopefully soon, we can get together. I'd like to see you. I miss you, and Cerberus, too. You're a friend, Oz, and outside of my fellow X-Men, they're hard to find and well worth cherishing. Lots of love, Allie.
And now we see the newspaper there.
Yeah.
Where it says the X-Men killed. Right? You ask me, it's good riddance. Those beauties got what they deserved. The world's better off without their kind.
Some of those muties, pal, were friends of mine. It's disrespectful to speak so of the dead. How's about instead you all raise your glasses in a toast? And if you don't, well, I'm a tolerant man by nature, but my dog, he's got a real short fuse. To Dazzler and the X-Men.
To Dazzler
and the X-Men. May you find the peace and world you dreamed of. Because, folks, you more than earned it. And Alley girl, sweet darling Dazzler, this one's for you.
We just want to also say that we don't condone drinking and driving.
You know what? Kids, don't drink and drive.
Do not.
Especially not with a pooch on your lap. That pooch, you get an accident, that dog's going straight through the window.
Next, Down Under.
Down Under.
Down Under.
Down Under. Crikey. It's interesting. The way this ends is almost like the other. So now we have 2 issues. And I'm thinking more of whoever was it, Neil? Who was the cameraman in the last issue?
Neil Conan.
Same thing too, like, thank you, X-Men, for everything. And so we kind of have 2 issues in a row here where we have, like, allies or supporters kind of like, reinforcing that, we owe you so much and thank you kind of thing.
Yeah. Agreed.
Butch.
Butch. Do you have any overall thoughts on this issue?
It's not bad. It's all right. I think you know what? I think I'd probably what am I saying right now? It was, I think, again, I probably enjoyed it a lot more, or it would make more sense to me in the grand sequencing of things if this wasn't the issue following the Fall of the Mutants. Like, you're right. Put this 10 issues ago, 7 issues ago, as a throwback one-off. I don't know. I feel like that might be. But it's okay. I like when they go off on teams and team up.
True.
I
could stand if this was like one story in an annual. Right. And there were maybe 2 or 3 of X-Men solo or team up adventures, or a spin-off.
Yeah.
Or, a spin-off series of some kind. The Dazzler narration, oh my God, was it exhausting?
Oh, so much.
You had to read all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it was necessary. I think the idea that they're going after, that her friend, the bounty hunter, went after a drug-dealing murderer and somehow got tangled with the government. That's all good. You could just dive right in. And they're just on the chase, and they kind of discover it as they go and uncover the truths that Guy Ritchie was kind of defending him in some way. And justice happens because the dog gets in the way. Totally. That's all good too. I think the story is fine. The way it's delivered is just way more complicated than it needed to be.
Yeah, you wonder too, like with the guest plotter from editor Tom DeFalco, like maybe he's like, here's the idea, and Claremont, who's the scripter, is like, fine, guess what? You're getting all my words.
Yeah. Every word I've ever heard is going to go into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, including my favorite defenseman in the KHL, Zaitsev.
Nikita Zaitsev, absolutely.
Man, Leonardi can really bring it, though. Like, I think him and Austin as a team are really good.
Yeah.
I would have loved maybe a couple more key anchor images. I know it wasn't that time period. They're still kind of focused on storytelling and getting through. But this splash of Allison Blair, in the Danger Room is one of the very few visual highlights in terms of memorable images.
Right.
But the team is so capable of creating some great moments. I also love her costume in black there. It happens to be partially shown here, her in what's known as the DeLuca effect, when you have a character moving across a panel, multiple images. I love her in that black costume.
I really enjoy that panel.
Yeah, it's a great panel.
Yep.
One of the highlights of the issue. And they can, like I said, they can really bring it. I kind of want to know a little bit more about this Russian villain. He's a power drainer vampire, kind of takes someone's energy, zaps energy. I guess if this was one of those adventures where you draw it out one more step, like if it's a Batman animated series episode in the first season, he has a chance encounter while he's pursuing the clues. He barely escapes with his life intact, and then gets to have a second encounter where he's ready. So I would have loved it if we maybe cleared out some of the junk in this issue and give them a chance where they maybe meet him either on the street or in the swamp or whatever, and they barely get away. And then they get to meet him again and get the upper hand on him because of the dog.
It's too bad he was allergic to dogs all along.
Yeah.
That's what got him in the end.
Totally. Dan says 10 issues to go until my personal run ends. You got to get on that back issue buy-in train, son. Yeah, it's tricky to do. I find a lot of these issues, of course, they're still out there. They're just expensive, unfortunately. Or they're getting there. I'm going the other way. You know, I picked up a new issue in my. I'm trying to get the whole run, and I know there are definitely some prohibitive ones as we get, especially closer to 100. On either side of 100, issue 100 way back when, but I'm starting to really like chip away at all the John Byrne. I'm getting close. Like
that's amazing.
Maybe 10 issues away from having all the Burns. I get maybe 2 a year or 3 a year, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, I got a new one on the weekend, so I'm happy.
Very cool. Which one?
114.
114.
Yeah, where the gang is in the Savage Land with Magneto, but believed dead.
Okay.
Beast and Jean make it out. Of the lava coming in.
Oh, yes.
And go in that tunnel. So the cover is like Jean, Beast, and Professor X with the ghost of the X-Men kind of behind them. Speaking of issues with ghosts on the cover. So anyway, neat to always get back to these things. But I just love that image of Dazzler.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Solid.
David says, I feel like DeFalco was trying to codify some of what he did on the Dazzler solo into the mainline fan base's brains. I think that is a very valid, well-substantiated point of view. Yeah, I think so too. I think, like Claremont, who likes to bring in characters from his writing past, I think DeFalco is doing something similar where he was, you know, also trying to put his stamp on what's happening in X-Men comics, maybe a little bit more than fans at the time wanted. Speaking of fans, terrible segue. You know what I'm a fan of?
You're going to say you started an OnlyFans channel?
We're now moving to OnlyFans exclusively. And to each their own. I mean, I think that's fine. So you can. How's about it's time? I believe it's a good time for it. How's about next week we do Excalibur? The Sword is Drawn.
Sure. Okay. Do we have? Oh, nice. How do you want to do that? We don't have a digital copy, do we?
No, but I'll just do what I've done in the past and find a digital copy and or we just do it, put it on camera.
Oh yeah.
You read yours, I'll read mine. I just put it on camera here.
We could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be fine. Yeah, one of those two. We'll see which one we feel like doing.
Well, considering the last issue, we got a little bit of Nightcrawler and Kitty, kind of like, you know, basically seeing that the X-Men are dead, and so they're kind of like, oh no, what's next? I'll tell you what's next.
Excalibur, The Sword is Drawn, also known as the Excalibur one-shot, prestige format one-shot from 1988. We'll tackle that one next week, which will be a blast. It is a huge,
Alan Davis,
warm fuzzy spot for me.
Claremont and Davis.
Yeah, really something special for me. Dan says, actually, I sold them off 239 through 312. LOL. Keeping 160s through 238 after rereading it all in a row last year. Oof. I'm reading 490s to the end now. Oh, my goodness. That is a lot of comics, sir.
Enjoy.
A lot of comics. Boom, 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 boom. That leaves us there. But anything else you want? Do you want to talk about Daredevil for a minute?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Well, the Daredevil show is a thing that's on. It's called the Daredevil Show.
Sure. It's a variety. It's a variety show
on Disney Plus right now. Of course, Daredevil Born Again airs or drops every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So there is a new episode waiting now. Ooh. And what are they? 7 episodes?
7 in before tonight.
So last week was sort of like the end of the first arc. It felt like I wasn't sure if the season was going to end there, truthfully.
Sure.
And then it clearly didn't.
Yeah.
The episode before that was like, okay. But the episode before that, 2 episodes came out in a week. Episode 5. Can we talk about that for a minute?
The bank robbery?
The bank robbery.
Yeah.
One of strong. Let me roll my sleeves up here.
Yeah.
One of the worst episodes of TV I've watched in a long time. It was the wrong tone. It felt like it was from another series. It felt like
Sure.
maybe it was the pilot for them to figure out if they could rejig this, this franchise. It felt like it was a completely different show. When I was watching it, I was ready to put the remote down and turn the power off and walk away and be like, done with Daredevil. It was, for me, I had such a negative reaction to it. Maybe there was something in the food that I had been eating that day, or maybe someone had said something to me that pissed me off. But man, oh man, I did not enjoy that one bit. And I just wanted to talk to someone about it. I don't have the science as to why I didn't like it. It felt like it was just a different show an episode from a different show. And it had no bearing on the storyline at the time at all. It feels like they had to put a few things in there so that would maybe feel like it was connected. But it was okay.
It's like when Family Matters crossed over with Full House.
Did that happen?
I think so.
It does. Okay. I'm going to just... some spoilers. Okay, spoiler warning.
Tanner got to meet Urkel.
I don't care.
I'm not just saying.
I was too old for that when it happened. You're ruining my whole life by talking about those two characters. So, minor spoiler about the premise of the show of Daredevil Born Again. He has put away the idea. He's dropped the idea of being Daredevil. He's decided to really focus on moving on with life as Matthew Murdock and honoring people that he's loved, that he's lost. And he does not see a place for Daredevil in his life anymore. He's trying to, and the climate in the city is not an easy one for a costume vigilante. So all those forces are there. We know that he's going to become Daredevil eventually.
Yes.
We know he's going to pick up his billy club. He's going to put on a mask. He's going to get violent. He's trying to walk a different path. And the whole series is like him being shoved down that road with his heels dug in, and eventually the thing inside of him is going to have to come out.
Yeah.
When that happens, when it eventually is going to happen, I'm not saying when or that it actually has or whatever, but when it does happen, it needs to be significant.
Sure.
It needs to be not something where you go, fuck it, and go do it. Right. It's something where it tears you up inside to have to do this thing, to become a man of action, a man of violence.
To break your vow.
Law. Right? To break your vow. Thank you. Right. It is not a thing where you just say fuck it and go do it.
Right.
And it is not something to be taken lightly to break a vow that you pledged solemnly.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to take action in that bank, it was like out of nowhere, he just decides to go fight crime in a bank.
Yeah.
And it had no bearing on the series before or after.
Nope.
And it was so strange they gave us 2 episodes that week for some reason. Here's the extra episode that you don't need to watch, but here's the real episode 6.
Right.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm so irked by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
David says, spoiler, he says fuck it literally in the Muse episode, though. Yeah, I know. That's also why I'm bringing that up. It was... I don't mind the character eventually, like I said, becoming Daredevil again. That is the direction the show has to go, because that's the story that they're telling.
Yeah.
And I can't believe they just made it where he's like, fuck it. What are you doing?
Well, you mean that episode, the bank episode, or the episode where he goes after Hector's niece?
Where he puts on the costume again.
Yeah.
He actually says,
he does. He's on the phone with the cops, right?
Couldn't believe it. Yeah. Not in a good way. I'm not mind blown by the amazing idea. I can't believe how cavalier and glib that was, when it is literally supposed to be the crux of the emotional crux of the show.
Yeah.
The conflict is him and that vow.
Well, and you see, it's interesting because so take that out if you can. And when he is engaging Muse underneath in a pretty decent hand-to-hand fight, it's kind of fun. What's that? Right?
That's just when he was engaging Muse underneath hand to hand. I'm like,
hand to hand.
Some sort of Dutch rudder action.
Dutch on a reverse motorboat. I don't know what we're doing. Anyway, well, while that's all happening, I do like you can see he does like give himself over to like the violence and like and it becomes, and so I liked that it was kind of like a moment of transition where he's, you know, because he's you know, he doesn't really have an equal in a sense. He's in that sense he should be taken care of pretty easily, but what I also found was after a year of, or not a year or whatever it is in the timeline, being Matt Murdock and not being Daredevil, you know, he's a bit rusty. And so, but he's almost too rusty. Like in the bank scene, I'm like, come on, these are just goons. Come on, man. Like you're taking your sweet time with these guys. And they're like, are we meant to be like, this is him shaking off the rust because he's a bit out of practice? But then suddenly he like puts on the suit and he's like right back into it. So,
yeah. I'm not gonna say that I have like a better.
The pacing is they haven't. I mean, maybe something they're working through, because you're right. I mean, you see the chat, like they're different creative teams. There was a stop and a revamp. So
yeah, it feels like something different. Like I guess I was at least expecting something along the lines of like him going.
The diamond was in the candy bowl.
and having Miss Marvel's dad shoehorned into this.
Yeah, to connect it like such a. I mean, I don't mind seeing other characters from.
No, of course.
What we would say the MCU New York City.
Sure.
Interact, and we get it in episode 7 too, right? Where Kingpin goes to the elite dinner, and there's Kate Bishop's adoptive stepdad is there.
The swordsman,
Jack Duquesne, right? He's there. So he's there. So you're kind of okay. So I like that idea of peppering this, like saying like they all exist now in the same space. But that one particularly was a bit goofy. I also thought it was goofy that I'm like, if he can just break into any bank anytime because he can hear the I'm like, oh, we haven't explored this. Can you just become a bank robber now, Daredevil? Like, I'm
okay with him being able to crack a safe.
Oh, you know, I thought, no, I'm okay with it, but I was still like, he's like, 1 second. Like, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, so you're opening this now.
That was cool.
And then feeling the face, that was kind of funny.
Yes.
Like it's really funny because now we're in like MCU power territory, like, right, where it's like a little notch up on certain things. And we saw it when he fought She-Hulk as well in that episode. He had a little bit of oomph in his moves that were a little more super powery.
Even in episode 1 of this series, there's a scene where he swings on top of a structure on a rooftop that is superhuman, and I'm down with all of that.
Right. So yeah, no, it's you know, him reading faces of paintings of everybody in New York City.
Yeah,
and then realizing it's pretty convenient.
Yeah,
but I am enjoying him back in the suit. I'll say.
Yeah, me too. And I'm willing to just like the same way that I would have watched a TV show every week in the 1980s or 90s that had a superhero in it.
Yeah.
Like My Secret Identity or something. Sure. I'm just gonna give myself over and watch this and just enjoy it. Totally. I would love it if my critical brain loved it too.
Right.
But it's not loving a few parts of it. I think I was kind of expecting him to, to be feeling that rage, for him to be facing the reality that he is Daredevil no matter what. And to have a physical reminder, I like the idea that he has the broken off horn in his pocket as a totem. I'm down with all that. But I thought like he needs to go get the ropes.
Yeah.
Go up to the gym.
Yeah, we
get a little rage out and it not be enough, and like,
okay, or maybe he stops like a small scale mugging or something. Like,
well, that was what
the
bank robbery could have.
Not the bank robbery. Maybe it's like smaller, and it builds up to that, where it's like, You know, he just gets a little taste. Like he takes a guy in an alley, and then you just see him come back, and he's like,
well, that's the idea. Is that you have to boil it down to its simplest thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to save a life or not?
Yeah.
And is letting them die worse than breaking your vow?
Right.
And just it's a simple, heavy choice, but a simple one. So it's pure funny. One where we all are on his side to do it.
And it's funny how you mentioned earlier about, like, you know, he has to come to realization that he's always, this is who he is.
Right.
This is who he is, and you can't fight that. And you get a little bit of that in episode 4 with the Punisher, where they have the castle, they have about a 5-minute conversation where they kind of talk about confronting their trauma, both of them. And I was like, this is great. I'm like, let's have 2 vigilantes like talk about not just like their approaches, but like the next level deeper, where it's like it's who they are. They can't get visions out of their head. Like they have mental health issues. There's trauma there. Like, let's maybe explore. Like, I was really like that's what interested me most about this show so far. It was like that interaction, not because it's Punisher Daredevil, but because like they're both broken and they're trying to like, well, I walk this way, you walk this way, and like, of course, you know, Frank kind of sees it a bit more clearly, but except that he's also Frank Castle, right? So it's one of those. I thought that was, I wanted more of that. After that, like 5-minute, I was like, can I have more of this, please? You know.
I also think I would have loved it if, you know, like that idea that he has to get back involved as Daredevil.
Right.
Maybe there isn't time to go suit up.
Right.
Maybe it's like, if you're gonna do it, you're risking everything.
Yeah.
So maybe when you go rescue the psychiatrist, maybe she finds out, like, you if it is that important, everything has to be on the line.
Right.
So I'm hoping that comes up later at some point where you can't have your cake and eat it too in this. Like, if you're going to go back,
that's it. Right? Maybe it's a point, because right now he's doing it under the guise that like Fisk won't find out. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's doing it still, like, you know, in the shadows, but like maybe it has to be something public. Like, he knows that if he does this, he makes that call. That's it. Like, that's no turning back. No, you know, it's back to open season on everything, right?
On everything. And I'm down for that. I'm down for where that goes. Just to wrap up a thought and maybe move on with our nights respectively. Have you watched, speaking of Punisher, have you watched the Guy Ritchie movie, not that Guy Ritchie-ish, called Wrath of Man? Jason Statham.
No, but Jason Statham's in it, so now I'm interested.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's called Wrath of Man.
Yes.
Netflix in Canada, at least. I'm assuming it's on Netflix in the States. There's a lot of Guy Ritchie stuff on Netflix these days.
There is.
It is essentially a Punisher. Like, you can almost 1-to-1 make it a Punisher story.
Sure.
Drawn out, obviously, over the 2 hours. And Statham is in the role of Frank Castle. But not, of course.
Yeah.
But you'll get all the Punisher things that you want. Tensions drawn out until everything explodes. So if you want a little more of that Punisher dealing with his trauma by killing everyone, I'm going to highly recommend.
Does he belong to a secret organization, the Beekeepers?
Well, they're called actually Wasp Lovers. I think it's something else, though. I'm not sure. The other thing I just put out there is, if you are a fan of Guy Ritchie or different, I mean, he has a few different gears. He has the, comedy crime kind of stuff, like the Snatch and Lock, Stock, where it's cheeky and there are colorful, eccentric British characters with outrageous accents that, have one-liners and technique that is, makes them super villainish, caricatures. And that stuff's all fine. Like The Gentleman, Colin Farrell has a really fun role in that one, in the movie, not the TV show. This is not that gear of Guy Ritchie. This is you won't know it's Guy Ritchie by the way it looks or the rhythms of it. It's just he brings expertise to deliver this movie, and it is like toned in exactly where it should be for a movie of this kind.
Okay.
None of it's gratuitous, but it's
Sure.
never more than it needs to be.
You
I guess
had me when you said Jason Statham.
I'm going to say it's not gratuitous. I think it's exactly right at hitting the bullseye. Daredevil.
I watched that man do
what it should be. Tone and the level of violence and blood. It's right on. It's not for fun. There's no kind of romance with it.
Yeah.
It's straight up. Yeah. Frank Castle.
Again, I will watch anything with Jason Statham.
Would you?
I have. I find him one of. I mean, it's such a. I mean, I don't know what his. If we had the over under on movie, but like, there's so many things that he's done that I've just sat and enjoyed, like the Transporter movies, the Crank movies, the Beekeeper. Thought it was a hoot.
Yeah,
we had a great time watching the Beekeeper.
I think I went to bed.
You know,
at the third act, I was like, "Yep, good."
I'm in. Like, you're gonna go this. You Meg, yeah. I'm gonna you're gonna go this. Do it. I'm in. Did
you ever watch? What's the one with him and? Oh no, it's a comedy one where
Spy?
he is the spy.
Is it Spy with Megan McCarthy? Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
there was some really funny things in that one.
Oh, he's so good in that.
Yeah.
He plays that role, and it's like doesn't I never get tired of it, truthfully.
All right, can you get him into X-Men somewhere? Is there an X-Men character you think he could play other than Pyro?
Right, other than Pyro.
But I think he actually can do more than what Pyro.
Yeah, I think so too.
Or maybe that's a broader MCU, and then we'll call it a night.
Yeah, Professor Xavier.
He would be a totally interesting take on Professor X, that's for sure.
Different version of Professor X.
Unique.
I don't know. I had to think about it, but
other than the visual bias of putting him in a wig and making him, but like Wolverine, no?
Yeah, put him in that wig.
But we can have. I'm gonna just say we can have a bald Wolverine.
We could. All right.
We. So I'm interested. Okay, so throw in the chat, anyone, comments below, if you can think of a good role for Jason Statham.
Jason Statham and the X-Force, do it.
In the X-Men, sure, that's one thing, but broader MCU, I would love it if there was a great role for him. Captain Britain.
He would be. It's a fun choice. It's an inspired choice for Captain Britain.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. You play that one.
Hobbs and Shaw. Like, I just, there's just. I enjoy Jason Statham.
Yes, you definitely do. And that, my friend, brings us to another.
And on that note,
another episode of Previously in X-Men. Thank you to my favorite lover of Jasons.
Love all the Jasons.
And
all of them.
Writer of Group of Seven, A Most Secret Tale, which is right
my
there.
My favorite are you, Jason Statham, and Jason the Argonauts.
What about Jason Spezza?
I don't like him as much.
Fair enough. Chris Sanigan. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for being here. There's that one too, huh?
Woo!
Your name's not on the cover, but it's in the credits. It's in the credits. You can find out more about our comics and upcoming appearances at group7comics.ca. And of course, the number 7 is the number, not the word. You can follow us at Group of 7 Comics on social media. Please click like on the video. Much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel, which would be a huge help. And share with us your take on this issue. Maybe Rick Leonardi, casting for Jason Statham in the MCU. Any X-Men comics things in general. We'd love to talk about it in the comment section below. Yeah. Thank you, bubs. And stay Xy out there. Everyone, look after yourselves. And thanks for hanging with us tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week as we tackle The Sword is Drawn, Excalibur.
Lots of Jason Statham in that one.
Lots of Jason Statham. Good night, everybody.